Hi there. I'm Charlie Gilbert, and I'm the Executive Director of Musicalab, a nonprofit organization that supports musical theater creators here in Philadelphia. On Monday, June 26, Musicalab will present a showcase featuring work by 7 writing teams from Philly. Over the past few days, I've spoken on Zoom with each of our writing teams about their shows, and in this video, I'll share one of those conversations with you. If you love musical theater, you'll want to join us at the Proscenium Theater at the Drake in Center City, Philadelphia on Monday, June 26th at 7 p.m. to check out the amazing work being created by these writers. I also encourage you to support Musicalab by clicking on the link in the comments and donating to our GoFundMe campaign. Thanks for your support. All right, here's the video. All right, I've got a big group to talk to us today. This is another one of the writing teams for Musicalab's June 26th showcase, and these are the writers behind the musical Cool at Camp. We've got Dani Tapper. Why don't you wave, Dani, so we know who is who? Stephen Blutig, the only other dude on the screen right now. Emily Stumer and Robin Raskin, to talk to us about Cool at Camp. Well, the title kind of gets me thinking about certain things, but what's the subject of Cool at Camp? Dani, do you want to start us off? What's the subject?
Okay, so our one-liner right now, it's an interactive, real and raunchy Jewish camp musical.
So that was good. Say that again more. So interactive what?
An interactive, real and raunchy Jewish camp musical.
Real and raunchy. All right, I like that. Sounds promising.
Yes. So I've been a camper. I went to a sleepaway camp for 15 years. And I always knew I would love to do a show or musical about camp, but many have been done. However, the ones that I've seen have been, I felt like they weren't specific to my camp experience. They're almost too broad. And I feel with theater or any storytelling, to really have a good story, you really need to get really specific, and it's okay if the audience maybe wouldn't have had that experience. Like I always use Fun Home as an example. We haven't all lived that life, that they represented or next to normal, but they're so specific that you can really tell the story well. So I wanted to, I always look at everything more as a producer now. And I felt like I know this audience, I know they're out there. And so I felt that if we could do it well, this could definitely be successful. So I thought, who can I bring in? Because I think of myself, I'm definitely more a composer than a writer. I'm not so funny and I need help. So I thought of Steve, and I'd love him to briefly say what he does. He's no one here, and I don't think they'll take offense to this, it's the truth, but they're unbelievably talented and funny, but they don't have experience with writing for musical theater. So I've kind of guided them in that way, but they are talented. And I think that we've managed to still create this really funny, great show. Steve, you want to just quickly say what you're writing, how I met him and how I came across him?
Sure. So Charlie, I've been writing this blog about camp called the Daily Camp News, dailycampnews.com.
Right.
And I've been writing it for about a decade. I write it every summer. It's pretty much about the ridiculousness of camp in the Jewish sleepaway camp in the Northeast. It's about how over the top the parents are. Really, that's probably the biggest focus, and just how ridiculous the whole camp thing is and how great it is.
I was going to say, is it fictional? Is it made up stuff, or is it for observations from real life?
Both. So I made up a camp called Camp Huron Lake, and I've been going with that. I have characters. I have the same recurring characters for the last 10 years, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. So I have a lot of following. And I guess, that's how Dani reached out to me.
Yeah, so I was getting these emails for years. I look forward to reading them every week. And so I knew he has this, he's so clever with his humor, and it's so creative and original. I'm like, I have to do something with him. And then I thought, well, who else? And then Robin, I know that she has done some writing, be it screenwriting and other sorts of writing. And she was always just a really smart, funny, we've known each other since we were like 8, same with Emily. So she's had that same experience, but she's a really great writer. And I've even learned more so as we've gone through this experience. Like I kind of show them how a musical should be shaped. And there's strengths that I have in some of the stories, and then more of the humor and other strengths. It's really great because Robin and Steve kind of have different strengths. So it's been very easy to say, okay, Robin, this is definitely your scene. Steve, this is definitely your scene. Emily, who I've known forever, is just so funny and so pro camp. And I thought she would just be a great sounding board to just kind of, if we're missing anything or for little touches, along the way. But for why it's called Cool at Camp, because our whole thing was, okay, we know we want to do it about camp, but what's the story? We need a story. What's this about? We need a focus. When I grew up, let's say at home, or most people yeah, we're not so cool, but we go to camp and all of a sudden we're like great athletes and we're awesome. And it's like, well, we're always so cool at camp, And so that's kind of where that concept came about. And it's about this kid who's, the opening scene is he's like not very cool at home and kind of but he thinks he doesn't realize why. He thought he was so cool at camp, but then he realizes, wait, maybe I'm actually not that cool, and it's all about 4 characters really, and what it really means to be cool at camp and cool in life and embracing it.
No, I think it seems very accessible and very, very approachable, even though as you say, the world that Stephen has been blogging about for all these years is a very specific world. Yeah. And a very funny world, to be sure. I'm sure there's a lot of humor to be mined there or to be found there, but it also then kind of becomes more universal as we get into that. So this is great. So when you get together to work, do you work in person? Do you work on Zoom? How do you work together?
Robin, you want to take us?
Yeah. So we had been having weekly Sunday night meetings, about an hour, where we would just sort of keep going through the script over and over again, spitballing and throwing things out to one another. And then we would, as a takeaway, Dani would say, all right, why don't you go work on this part? Why don't you go work on that part? I'll work on this part. And then we have a shared Google Doc so that during the week, we can all go in, see what people have been working on, comment on other people's work, and then come back again the next Sunday and hash it out.
I really haven't written much of the music yet, because the one thing I've learned so much and I really understand now is the book comes first, right? Without a good book, and you don't want to waste time writing songs that aren't going to be there. But we do have an opening number that really and with dialogue too, that really sets up the whole thing. And that's what we're going to be presenting at Musical Lab. But that's kind of how we did it. So now our first draft is kind of there. We're ready for reading of that. And we're going to start putting in this. We know where the songs are going.
Well, and camp is a world that is full of music and full of songs. Dani, was this your idea from the beginning, that this would be a musical, that this was a good idea for a musical? Why did you want it to be a musical?
Maybe it doesn't have to be, but I mean, that's just my thing, right? So if I'm involved, chances are it's going to be a musical, and we'll see how that goes.
Same for me. Yeah. How that
I don't know any other way to tell a story. But I think there's some really funny songs that we're going to have in here, but also we say it's interactive because, again, I'm looking as a producer and I'm seeing people sitting at the dining tables when they come to the theater, like a different even sort of setup, like not a typical theater setup, one where they're included in cheers and when color breaks, we might even give different colors to people. I think anyone from like the, 30 to 60, I think there's a large group of people that really have such fond memories of summer camp, and to relive that experience would be really fun. But I think it's important to really include the audience, and so that's kind of the vision that I have for this.
Well, yeah. Of course, it's a funny time, but also growing up is a time when you're a camper. It's a time when you're trying to figure out who you are and kind of where you fit in the world and what you could be. So there is something, I'm going to guess, a little poignant as well about this material. Is that true?
All of our kids also go to camp. Mm-hmm. And my parents went to camp. A lot of our parents went to camp. And we realized the jokes and a lot of the things, even from the 70s, are the same as they are now and were a couple years, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's a beautiful thing about camp and why it can be, hit all different age groups.
Yeah. And we do have, there's really some beautiful lessons here, and every, that's another thing I really wanted to, that I learned from doing other shows is, really watching every character's arc, making sure that really comes full circle. What have they learned? I think that there's some really beautiful, sweet stories here. That's why I really love the show, because I think it's special in that way too. It's not just silly, and it's not just raunchy, and not just fun. We made sure that everyone really felt, really warm, and at the end, it's really sweet.
Well, it sounds great. I know even from when you and I first talked about it, Dani, and I saw your notes on that, I thought this was really an appealing idea. I love the mixture of, the sweetness and the humor. I love the idea that it's interactive. I know you've got a great opening number that kind of establishes the premise of the musical that we're going to be sharing in this concert on Monday night on the 26th, and then maybe that'll create some interest in seeing the project go forward. So thank you all very much, and good luck with the project, and we'll see you at the theater on June 26th. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. Thanks.